Welcome back to the Leverage Your Podcast show. I'm your host, Lindsay Phillips. For those that already know me, hey, welcome back. And for those that don't, I'm so glad you've joined us. And if you are here, obviously you are looking to optimize, leverage, and gain more strategies with either guesting or having your own podcast. And what I love about the conversation that we're going to have today with Dave Dubeau, who's the host of the High Ticket Success podcast, and he also I know which way is it behind me, and the Property Profits Real Estate podcast. I know he's everywhere. And but what I love is that he has a system for busy experts who are tired of like chasing leads and using a podcast as a high conversion sales tool. And I think this is a conversation that not a lot of podcasters are having. So, welcome to the show, Dave.
Lindsay, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you for all that you do for us podcasters. I've learned a ton from you, especially
Aw,
about
thanks.
being a guest on people's shows. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, right? Like when people are guesting, or sorry, when people are hosting their show, they automatically think of, oh, I need to attract listeners and grow the show and downloads, and I'll monetize that way.
Hmm.
So I feel like your strategies are such a faster path to monetize. So can you kind of break it down what that looks like?
Well, it's not out to lunch to think those things, growing your
Yeah.
audience and getting more downloads and all that kind of stuff. That's what we've all been taught when it comes to podcasting. I know that's what I was chasing after for the longest time. I started this one, Property Profits Real Estate Podcast, back in 2018. We're at like 1,500 episodes so far. And initially, I was doing the same thing
Yeah.
everybody else does, and that is, hey, let's create a show. Everybody's starting a podcast. Let's try and get some big names on the show, and hopefully they'll get the word out to their massive audiences, and people will tune in. I'll grow my audience, and they'll tune in week after week after week. And some of them will figure out I'm a smart guy, and some of them will reach out, and some of them will end up doing business for me. So I was hoping for a lot of things to happen without
Yeah.
much actually happening for a long time. And then, Lindsay, 4 or 5 years ago now, I was listening to somebody else's podcast,
Yeah.
and a really smart young guy came on there. He said, "Hey, you know what? This whole idea of chasing downloads and listener base and all this kind of stuff, that's a fool's game because it's pretty hard to control. There's a ton of competition out there." He said, "What I do is instead of worrying about my audience, I've turned things around. And my number one goal is to interview the kind of people I want as clients
Mhm.
on my podcast. I want to shortcut that. And instead of hoping people will tune in, let's just interview the exact kind of people we want to work with." And that's where the light bulbs went off and the
Yeah.
angels sang and all this cool stuff started happening. And I said, that is brilliant. So I made an almost instantaneous switch with my show and just went all in on this, what I call now high ticket podcasting. So basically, that's a long winded way to explain, Lindsay. Instead of chasing after, audience members and
Yeah.
audience growth, make your show all about interviewing the right kind of people that you want to do business with. And the goal then is to make your guest look good, feel good, sound good, and then create a little bit of curiosity about what it is that you do
Mhm.
and see if you can book them in for a follow up conversation or a discovery call about you and your services, but only after you've given them massive value first
Yeah.
by being a guest on the show. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I mean, there's so many different goals, right? When it comes to hosting your show. Yes, downloads, numbers, reach, authority. I know for me, my podcast, it's a way for me to get content that's easy, but also a way for me to network and make those
Yeah.
connections and collaboration opportunities. But the method that you're speaking of today, I just think it's so smart when done correctly. Um, that I think people, I don't know if they're scared of this kind of approach. I mean, I think more of it is coming out, but why would you say someone sort of holds back and doesn't take that approach?
Well, there's a couple of reasons, Lindsay. Number one reason is most people aren't aware of this approach. It really
Yeah.
is still pretty novel. The other thing that I've heard is, unfortunately, there are a few other people out there doing this approach, but in a very sleazy kind of way, a very bait and switch
Mm,
kind of modality. And that, it's like anything. There's a few bad apples in there, just kind of
yeah.
give everybody a bad name. So there is some concern every once in a while somebody gets interviewed by one of these guys or gals. It's just very, very overtly all about them and pitching their services and whatnot. And that might turn them off. But like you said, when you do it right,
Mhm.
this is a very, very pleasant way to connect with prospects. And here's what I mean by that. You legitimately are leading with the giving hand. I mean, think about this. In my case, with this podcast, I'm focusing on real estate investors.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys and gals I invite to be on my show haven't been interviewed very many times. So
Right.
it's kind of, or at all. So it's kind of a big deal for them to be invited to be a guest on the podcast. So they come on the show, and the interview really is all about them. It's about
Right.
highlighting them. It's not a sneak attack. It's not a 60 minutes expose type interview. It's very warm and friendly. And my goal is, like I said, to make the other person comfortable, really feature them and their success, their nuggets of wisdom. Obviously, I want to provide value for the audience because the audience
Right.
is there and it's growing.
Yeah, totally.
But it really is a lot about letting that person kind of strut their stuff, give them some recognition, give them a platform, give them a way to kind of show off a little bit where they probably don't get that opportunity very much at
Yeah.
home, definitely not at home or at work. So it's a nice way to do that. So the whole idea is lead with value first, give
Yeah.
the other person value. And then, of course, we are thinking about what's in it for us as well. So,
Yeah.
what I do is I gently massage the conversation towards the end of the interview towards what it is that's kind of my specialty. Now, it's not about me preaching at them or selling at them on the interview, it's just opening up the conversation
Yeah.
around that and seeing what their thoughts are about that particular issue, that particular challenge, whatever it is that you help people with, kind of poke around a little bit there and just kind of see what their thoughts are around that. And then the magic really happens after you stop the interview recording,
Yeah.
Lindsay. That's where the magic really happens.
Now, how do you avoid the bait and switch? And I know people struggle with having those kinds of conversations in the best of times.
Yeah.
People feel uncomfortable in the green room before and after, even when it's not that kind of
You
a
mean the
podcast.
host or the guest feels
I
uncomfortable?
think both. Like,
Yeah.
I just feel like there's this like awkwardness sometimes of like, how can I support you in your business? Or like,
Yeah.
how can I help you? Or how can I share about my
Yeah,
business? Like
which
everyone avoids trying to be icky.
yeah.
What can you do to, I guess, loosen that awkwardness and increase that level of comfort for everyone?
How do you feel about role playing a little bit, Lindsay?
Oh gosh. Okay.
let's just let's just
I'm
have a little bit
game.
of fun with this and
Yeah.
walk the tightrope without the net for a second.
Sure.
Okay, so let's look at an example. Are you
Mhm.
comfortable using your show and your services as an
Yeah.
example? Yeah. Okay. So who just for folks who might not be familiar with what
Mhm.
you do, how do you help people primarily? What's your number one thing that these days you're helping people
Mhm.
with?
I help podcast guests leverage and repurpose their podcast episodes as one of the services.
Right. Okay. So let's focus on that one because
Yeah,
that's huge, right?
easy. Hmm.
So you get somebody on your show who probably, I mean, your ideal target market is somebody who's already accustomed to being a guest on
Hmm.
podcasts, right? They're not new to this. They've been a guest lots of times, but they're not leveraging that properly, right? So if I were you and I were interviewing somebody, well, first of all, you could just have the conversation in the green room before the interview starts. Just my whole goal, put the other person at ease,
Yeah.
find a little bit of common ground, create a little bit of rapport, right? So that's just chit chatting. I'm not talking about how can I serve you and
Yeah,
any of that
yeah.
kind of stuff, right? Just nice little chit chat. Then you jump into the interview and you do your normal interview flow, right? Whatever that looks like. And then towards the end of the interview, because I mean, your show is all about leveraging your podcast, right? So that's kind of what people should be aware of that when they're coming in, right? So,
Yeah.
so I would say something like this, if I were you. I'd say, so Lindsay, sounds like you've been on quite a few podcasts in the past. I think you mentioned you've been on 357 podcasts. That's amazing. Let me ask you this: what do you find works best for you for leveraging those appearances? What's working well for you these days? Then you talk about
Yeah.
whatever it is you do or don't do to leverage your appearance on the show. And then that way, now I'm you. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, as the person's talking, okay, what are they doing right? What might they be missing? That kind of thing. Okay, and then you wrap up the interview, right? The normal way that you do. And you've stopped the recording, but you're still on Zoom with the other person. You're in the green
Yeah.
room after that. So what I do is I do a little bit of housekeeping with the person. Okay, Lindsay, that was a great interview. Thanks so much. It's going to be coming out in the next 5 weeks or whenever it's coming. Let's get a little screenshot for the artwork. Blah blah blah. Now you mentioned. Then I'll circle back, and then here's the
Hmm.
goal. So time out.
Hmm.
My goal is to create some curiosity
Right.
and offer to provide the other person with even more value. Okay. Okay. So getting back on track. So Lindsay, you mentioned during our interview that you've been on like 350 other shows, which is amazing. And to leverage your appearance on the show, these days you're really kind of relying on the host to kind of get the word out, and then you'll share on social media if you can. We found something that works really, really well with podcast guests to supercharge their appearance on other people's shows. And it's all around a service that we offer. And if you're interested, I'd love to jump on a quick little follow-up call and do
Hmm.
a quick 15-minute interview audit with you where I can show you at least 3 ways to leverage your appearance even more and generate much more business from your appearances as a guest. Is that something you might be interested in?
That's good.
They
100%.
say,
Of course.
yeah, boom. Then right there and then I book them in
Right.
for a follow-up discovery call within ideally 24, 48, maximum
Oh, wow.
72
Okay.
hours. Right away. Okay?
Yeah.
That's the key. So create something, not just, hey, let's just have a sales call. Nobody wants to jump on a sales call.
No.
Let's create something of value for the other person so that you can show them what it is that you do. Give them a little Costco taste test of you and your services. Make them an offer if they're interested at the end of that and get them engaged as a client that way. So if you get that, now I've simplified things,
Yes,
but that was
100%.
me, you and I spitballing here.
Yeah.
We didn't prepare any of this ahead of time, but I think something like that would work very well for you.
Yeah. That makes sense. And the key part for me here that where the light bulb went off and went, ah, was where you seeded part of that conversation in the interview
Yeah. It can't be a
versus,
sneak attack.
yeah, exactly. But I
Yeah.
wouldn't have thought of like, okay, what question can I ask during the episode that gives me that intel
Yeah.
to then later on go, oh, wait, you mentioned this. Oh, by the way, I do, this. Um,
Well, it's not even by the way I do this. It's what we've found or what we've done for
Right.
other people is blah, blah, blah. Would you be interested in? And then basically like a
Right.
something more valuable than a typical
Yeah,
sales
agreed.
call or discovery call. Like it's here, let me show you blah, blah, blah. So I'll give you an example with our property profits
Yep.
show. So we work with a lot of what are called real estate syndicators and fund managers, people who are looking to raise money,
Yeah.
raise private capital from what are called accredited investors. So that's a pretty specific niche.
Yeah.
So right now, our goal is for that show to get these kind of people, capital raisers, on the show. And ahead of time, I let them know. I don't give them the whole list of questions I'm going to ask them, but I
Right.
give them the gist. Hey, we kind of talk about this and that. And of course, we love to talk about raising capital as well. So it's not coming out of left field.
Yeah.
Then I go through my interview process, pretty short and sweet, like your interviews. I'm shooting for about a 20-minute conversation. And then towards the end of the conversation, let's say you were my guest, Lindsay, I'd say something like this. So, Lindsay, sounds like things are going really, really well with your real estate business. Now, a lot of, let's say, apartment building developers like yourself, they are looking to raise private capital. They're looking for investors and partners to join them in their deals. What have you found works best for you these
Mm.
days to raise private capital? And then they talk about whatever they do,
Yeah.
network, this, that, blah, blah, blah. Cool. And I'm not preaching, I'm not suggesting, I'm just kind
Yeah.
of asking them
Listening.
a question that
Yeah.
ties in very nicely with what we already been talking about and is of value to the audience because most of
Hmm.
my audience is curious about that as well. Okay. Then again, at the end, stop the recording still in the green room. Then I circle back. Lindsay, great interview. It'll be out, snapshot, blah, blah, blah. Now, by the way, you mentioned that you're doing pretty well with the whole raising capital side of things. You rely on Facebook ads a lot for that. Let me ask you this. Do you have the whole raising capital thing 100% dialed in, or is there maybe a little room for improvement there?
Yeah.
Well,
Who's not going to say there's room for improvement?
there's always room for improvement. Okay, well, cool. Well, we're doing something really interesting with some other busy syndicators just like yourself, where we're able to get them connected with 5 or 6 accredited investors every week, about 20 a month on average, using something very different, using a podcast. And the great thing is, it works very, very well. And it's a very easy conversation to get them from guest to warm commitment. Is that something you might be interested in taking a look at? Boom.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, and
Yeah.
that's not a fib. 9 times out of 10, they say yes.
Yeah.
And I get them booked into a follow-up discovery call, go through my whole thing, get a little bit more information about what they're doing, what's not working, what's working, and then show them our process and get them enrolled. Well, not always, but
Yeah.
good chunk of time, get them enrolled as a client for our services.
I love that. And the fact
Yeah.
that you have a system to like make that happen and have others do the same is so key because as you know, trying to figure out things on your own is can be painful. Now,
Yeah.
you have so you say book 5 to 6 conversations every week.
Yeah.
And then you also have the client connection catalyst to attract those premium prospects.
hmm
Can you go into that so we can kind of understand how to get the right people?
Yeah. So what we've been doing for the last couple of years, Lindsay, is working with clients and just trying to make this as easy
Yeah.
and turnkey as humanly possible. So we'll build them their podcast. We'll set up all the CRMs and everything in the back on the back end. And then we will go figure out, work with the client, really dial in who is their ideal avatar. Who do
Yeah.
they want to be working with? So, for example, we just started working recently with a client who is a fractional CFO,
Hmm.
Chief Financial Officer.
Yeah.
So he's looking for a very specific kind of client, somebody who has a small business in the $250,000 to about $1 million a year range. Okay. And then he's got a specific kind of demographic. He works a
Yeah.
lot with agricultural type folks
Oh, interesting.
in the prairie provinces. So that's a
Oh,
pretty specific
niche.
niche.
Yep.
Exactly. So the first thing we did is we came up with a podcast that's going to appeal to those people
Mm.
to be a guest on the show. So in this case, it's the Prosperous Prairie Founders podcast, right?
Ah,
Kind of dials in for them. And then we need to go out and find these kind of folks. So a lot of what we do, the team does, is LinkedIn. It's through LinkedIn. So we go into
right.
LinkedIn. It's the best way, especially in the B2B space,
Yep.
to find these kind of folks. And we've got a very specific search criteria. We use different tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator and then
Yeah.
other software where we take stuff and get phone numbers and emails and all this
Oh,
kind of stuff.
wow.
And then we do a multifaceted approach to reach out to these folks. We do DMs through LinkedIn, connection
Mhm.
requests, all that good stuff, cold emails to them, even picking up the phone and dialing them
Oh,
to
wow.
invite them to be a guest
Yeah, yeah.
on the show. And some folks say, well, okay, but why would they want to be a guest on this show? Well, for lots of reasons, right? Why do people want to be on your show? They want exposure.
Yeah,
They want to
credibility.
get
Absolutely.
in front of a new audience. They want credibility. For a lot of people, credibility kind of ties into an ego stroke, right? It's a bit of an ego boost,
Yeah.
especially because most small business owners have never been invited to be a guest on a show before.
Yeah.
It's a big deal for them, right? So that's what's in it for them. Plus, in our case, we say, hey, we'll even take your episode and create a bunch of content for you,
Hmm.
social media content, reels, shorts, short form video, all that kind of stuff. So you can leverage your appearance on the show as well.
Yeah, that's perfect. And
Yeah.
absolutely, like people want to get recognized for what it is that they do. They want to be able to say, oh, I've spoken on this stage, I've guested on this show. It does boost credibility in a big way. Um, I loved how you brought up, though, not just launching any old podcast with any old name. Like you are very strategic and specific on the type of podcast so that you are niche down to really target the the guests that you want to have on the show. That's super smart.
Yeah. Well, a big mistake I see a lot of people making is, starting up the Dave Dubeau real estate show.
Right.
Well, who cares, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe the Joe Rogan experience works because Joe's a big name and, all that.
Yeah.
But for most of us, nobody knows who the heck you are. Nobody really cares. So we always have to remember what's in it for them. Why would that person want to be a guest on my show? So that's what we start with. We start with why would they want to be on the show? We got to make the show something that they'll be proud of appearing on
Yeah.
that connects with them, right? So that's how we start things off.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, because your goal is more centered around the guest and like sales conversions and so forth, how important is it then on the marketing piece? Because your goal isn't to attract all the listeners and the downloads. I mean, I imagine the guests would want to know that you have an audience, but because
You'd be
podcasts are not
surprised.
cheap. Yeah.
You'd be surprised. Most people never ask.
Yeah.
That's the truth of the
I guess
matter,
that's
Lindsay.
true.
Now, here's the other truth though. The audience grows organically. When you do it
Yeah.
this way, it really is quite good because you're looking at attracting your ideal avatar as a guest on your
Yes.
show. They tend to know a lot of other people who are like them, right?
Right.
So that's what a lot of their social network is all about. And then we make it super easy for that person to promote their episode to their network. So
Right.
we're reaching out that way. We're starting to get listeners and followers and people tuning in from our guests' networks. And that's how we
Mhm.
grow the show organically without having to worry so much about, advertising for our show or,
Exactly.
or doing all of this kind of stuff that's very, very inexpensive, very, very expensive and
Yeah.
not usually very effective.
Yeah, and it's all about how you're framing what you're doing to meet your goals. Like when you look at it in that way of, oh, if I get it in front of this guest's audience and he promotes it, maybe there's other people that he knows that can then guest on the podcast, and so on and so on.
Yeah,
Uh, and yeah, and like you said, it will automatically grow organically by default.
it does. And again, here's the reality, Lindsay. Like I said, most of the guests you're going to have don't know about podcast guesting like you do.
Mhm. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's just like, oh, I get to be on a show. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
And we're creating a bunch of goodies for them for being on the show. That's the reward in and of itself for them. And then the other thing is, if you do get somebody asking, well, how many listeners and downloads and all that kind of stuff, you can be upfront and honest with them and say, what, even if you're getting an average of 30 or 50 or
Mhm.
100 downloads per episode, I know speakers who fly across the country to speak in front of a room of 30 people,
Yeah.
right? So that's a very good use of your time
Yeah.
if you're speaking to a targeted audience of people who are highly likely to be of some need of your service or interested in your business. So
Yeah.
that's the other side of things as well.
Well, that and as well, there are I have so many listeners, but I also have these people on my email list in my community.
Yeah.
I also have these people that I'm connected with on LinkedIn. So it's like, looking at it from a bigger viewpoint rather than a micro viewpoint, and the opportunities. And yeah, like you said, I would much rather have 30 people that are like my ideal client who are actively listening than having 1,000 that are, not really interested
Yeah,
in what it is that I do.
exactly. And they won't tune in anyhow. So it
Yeah,
doesn't really matter.
totally.
It's-
100%. So, do you typically do like one episode a week, or do you like what's the cadence, or a series or a season?
no, I just kind of keep things chugging. So I'll just give you an example of with my show.
Yeah.
At the moment, that what we do is we have 2 days a week where I do interviews for
Yeah.
that show. I block off a 2 hour time slot each one of those days, so 4 hours a week total. And
Mhm.
in each of those 2 hour time slots, they're chunked into 40-minute blocks. So I can do up to 3 interviews
Mhm.
per day
Oh, wow.
times 2 days. That's 6 interviews a week. So it's
Holy.
basically a daily show. And I know that,
Right.
okay, if I do those 6 interviews, out of those six, I'll book in 5 follow-up discovery calls on
Yeah.
average. And out of every, 5 discovery calls, I generate on average one new client.
Yeah.
It gets you so that you know kind of what your numbers are.
Yeah. Knowing those numbers and your goals are really key for sure. Because
Yeah.
if you're just going to do one once a month, you're just
Or
going to
even
get
once a week.
frustrated. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing, trying to do everything by yourself. If you're trying to find your guests and do the
Oh,
interviews and produce the show and create the content and release the show, and
yeah.
that's the
No
that's
thanks.
why that's why so many podcasts fizzle out after an
Yeah.
average of 7 episodes is the host is trying to do everything themselves and they quickly realize it sucks and they
Yep.
stop doing it.
Yeah. It's a lot of work. Having a team
Yeah.
behind you that does all the stuff in the back end,
Well, yeah, and
is a
especially if you're
saving
kind
grace.
of doing like most podcasters, hoping that you're going to create a big audience and hoping they'll figure out to reach out to you and blah, blah, blah. You don't give yourself enough runway to be able to do that. So
Yeah.
if you kind of switch focus and say, hey, let's just focus number one on interviewing the right kind of people that I could do business with and giving them value first and seeing if we can get them booked in on a strategy call or a discovery call, that's the fastest path to creating business from a podcast.
Yeah. How do you make sure you have enough time at the end of the podcast to have that little chat? Because sometimes people are like, "Oh, I got a hard stop. I gotta hop off."
Well, we tell them the interview is going to be approximately 30 minutes long, and then
Mm-hmm.
we make it about 20 minutes long.
Mm.
So we've got time there. That has not been an issue. Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
keep
good.
it short and sweet.
Yeah.
So folks know, and you can also pre-frame it ahead of time when you're in the green room. I just say, hey, Lindsay, really looking forward to our conversation. It's going to be about 20 minutes or so. And then at the end, stick around for a minute so I can get a little snapshot, let you know what it's going to be coming out and what the next steps are. Can you stick around at the end for a few minutes? They say yes, you're in.
Yeah. It is so much better when you set those expectations and like give people an idea of what's going to happen
Yeah.
ahead of time.
And not just
Absolutely.
not just through automated email.
Yeah,
People don't read it, or they don't remember it.
I
So just
know.
have a little spiel that you give them at the beginning of, before you start the interview in the green room.
Yeah, that's so smart. Do you believe in having pre-chats before the interview?
Hell no, ain't nobody got time for that. No,
Oh,
but I do believe in turning people down if they aren't a good fit.
mm,
Because once you get things up and running, make sure you've got an application to be a guest on your show. And if
right.
somebody isn't a good fit, don't be shy about turning
Yeah.
them down and trying to find somebody better, right? Because once your show gets up and running, you're gonna have podcast agencies out there trying to get people booked in. You're gonna have
Yes.
people finding you. So yeah, we're regularly turning people down politely
Okay.
uh, for being a guest on the show because
So
I
do I.
simply they're not a good fit.
No. So when you're working with your clients, do you really have an astringent onboarding process to figure out who that ideal guest is?
Oh yeah, for sure. So luckily, I mean, we've been doing this for a while. So for the real estate syndicator folks, it's pretty
Yeah.
straightforward. They're all kind of going after the same kind of person. So we got that really well dialed in. But if it's somebody different, like the gentleman I
Hmm.
used as an example, the fractional CFO, then we have to kind of dig in. We've got another
Yeah.
new client that's very interesting. Again, going after credit investors, but in a very specific geographic area. And she only
Mm.
wants to work with women. So
Oh,
that makes
okay.
it kind of fun too. So again, the show is all
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that angle as well. So yeah, good. It's always good to dial in who your avatar is. If
Yeah.
it's everybody and anybody with a pulse and a checkbook, nah, you're gonna have a hard time.
I agree. And do you also have a system for like what happens in that actual that quote unquote sales call after the podcast? Is that part of your service as well?
Well, we consult people on that, and we
Yeah,
can't really build it out for them. They got to already know what it is they do, who they serve, and how to do
totally.
it. Like you got to have your thing, but I can put my marketing hat on and play the part of a prospective client very well and give people feedback on
Oh, that's good.
what it looks like, what's working, what I don't think's working that well. And really the goal is to come up with an irresistible offer for the right
Yeah,
person, right? So make it kind of a no-brainer for people to want to do business with. Now that's easier said than done. It's taken me a ton of time and effort to kind of
same.
come up with something that's kind of close to that. But I tell you what, it makes such a huge difference once you do. So in my case, Lindsay, I think last time we were talking, the way we were bringing on new clients was, you know, we charge a really big upfront setup fee to get everything set up because it's a ton of work to get
Yeah.
everything set up and all
Oh,
the bells and
absolutely.
whistles and all that kind of stuff. And then we charge like a fixed monthly retainer to do all of the, lead generation and production services
Hmm.
for them and all that kind of stuff. And then I just had an epiphany. Actually, it was my own son who's doing an offer kind of like this in his niche. And I saw it and said, that's smart. So I said, how can I just lower the resistance as much as possible? So now the offer is,
Yeah.
hey, we'll build you the podcast for free and we'll go out and we'll find you your ideal prospects and we'll get them booked in. You can approve or deny them ahead of time. If you don't like them, we'll politely decline them, try to find somebody else. And then you do the interview and then we'll produce and release everything and create content for you and your guests. And then you only pay us per episode once it's been released. So that's kind of like
Whoa.
wow, it's a pay for performance kind of offer. And now
Yeah,
that we're doing
yeah.
that, it's uh, it's become a much more irresistible offer.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, creating an irresistible offer is like a whole nother conversation in itself, that's for sure. But I love how you opened up people's ideas and mind on like how to use podcasting in a way that does connect to your bank account much more directly. And I feel like too, you've got more control over your sales, your marketing, um, yeah, to
Yeah,
get better
it
results.
doesn't have to be the one and only thing. I never recommend
Yeah.
that, but it's just nice to know that, every Tuesday and Wednesday or
Mhm.
whatever your interview days are, you're going to be meeting three, four, five, six new ideal prospects
Right?
every single week in, week out.
Yeah.
And once you kind of get the swing of it, you're going to be able to know what your average conversion numbers are to a discovery call, dial in that offer, what your average conversion numbers are to a client. And it just adds a whole new level of predictability to your business.
100%. And yeah, you need to keep those prospects coming in or you end up running dry.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I know the last time we spoke, you had a three-step guide to landing 10K clients
Yeah.
with a podcast. Do
Yeah.
you still have that?
I do. People can check out what we do at highticketpodcasting.com. Again, that's highticketpodcasting.com. And then if you'd like the three-step guide, it's that highticketpodcasting.com / 10K clients. And that's the number 10K clients. Highticketpodcasting.com / 10K clients.
Awesome. And so that guide will step them through your processes and
Yeah, it kind of goes more in depth into what we've been discussing
yeah.
here, talk a little bit about the equipment that you should have,
Uh,
give you some templates, some examples. So it just makes it
oh,
much more
perfect.
visual for folks. And then, of course, if you want, you can always book a call and we can talk about how we can just be the big red easy button and set up all of this stuff for you and do it on a pay for performance basis.
I love that. I love the big red easy button.
Stole
Yeah,
that from Staples. There
I
we go.
know, 100%. And I love how you said ain't nobody got time for that. Was it Ma Brown or whatever her name is? Oh my God, that's my favorite meme. So funny. Yeah, I so appreciate your time and I love that you're
Likewise,
helping
Lindsay.
more podcasters monetize podcasting in a different way. So thanks again for joining me on the show.
Keep on doing what you're doing, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So that is a wrap, folks. And I hope you got some great tips from Dave and are looking at your podcast a little bit differently on how to monetize. And I will see you in a couple of weeks on the Leverage Your Podcast show. I appreciate you joining me. Take care.